I've never lived, I never coached afraid, and I've, I mean, we walked on the floor a lot with a lot of teams that were better than us, but you would have never known it the way we walked on the floor. We played Quincy High School. We had a 5 or 6 year run with Quincy High School. We would go to Chicago every year and we'd play one of the inner city schools and things like that. We played the Galesburg Shootout a few years ago, played a couple of the Chicago teams. And, on paper, they were probably more talented than us. When we walked on the floor, we didn't care. Mm-hmm. And that's, I think, the way you got to live. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm not reckless, but you can't be, you have to be confident who you are, and you have to live. And I coached fearless, and I lived fearless.
What's going on, guys? It's a Talk About It podcast. I'm Lauren Fulmer.
I'm Victor Dantas.
And today we're sitting down with Coach Chuck Grant. Chuck, how are you?
I'm doing great. I appreciate you having me in. It's this looks fun.
Yeah,
Thank
we're
you
going
for
to have
coming.
fun.
Yeah.
We appreciate you coming in. You've stepped away from coaching now, right? So
I have.
You're enjoying a little retired life.
I have. Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah, it was a gamble on my part. I love coaching. I miss coaching. But I also knew that at some point, if I wanted to do some of the things that I had planned in my life, I was going to have to, step away and take the chance my post-coaching life lived up to the reality that I thought it would be. And so far, it's met or exceeded that.
Good.
Okay. What are some of the other stuff you would like to do in your life that made you stop being a coach?
Well, I like to travel.
Okay.
Yeah, I just got back from New York. Got back from the Jimmy V basketball classic last week.
That's awesome.
I'm a big North Carolina Tar Heel fan, and so went out to the Garden, and I went out last year to watch Carolina play in the CBS Classic last year. I've been down to Chapel Hill several times. I was down in Florida, I think 2 or 3 times last winter. I just, all I need is my backpack and I go.
That's awesome.
That's good.
Speaking of Jimmy V, that's and coming from a coach, one of my favorite speeches, hands down, I'll tear up almost every time, is Jimmy V there at the ESPY, right before he passes away.
For sure.
I will tear up on that thing every dang time.
Well, first of all, I remember watching it live, and I remember I did have tears in my eyes watching it. The other night, last Tuesday, at halftime of the Illinois-Florida Atlanta game, they played it on the big screen. And so you're in the Garden, and you're watching the Jimmy V. It's pretty cool,
Yeah.
But I remember, when I was in high school, Jimmy V was at Iona. And of course, we didn't have the access to, the types of, you didn't cover the Ionas at that time. We didn't have ESPN, things like that. So I started reading about him in like Sports Illustrated and things like that. And he was just kind of a guy that, he was very interesting to learn about because, he was a young guy at that point. Very, I had a lot of charisma. And here he was bringing this Iona team with a guard by the name of Glenn Vickers and a big guy by the name of Jeff Ruland, and he's coming out of nowhere. They end up losing either the Sweet 16 or Final 8, but then a year or two later, he ended up at State. Of course, he had a terrific run at State, didn't end like he would have wanted it to. But I think for anyone that's my age or maybe a little bit younger, a little bit older, to remember, and one of the sporting events they could remember in their lifetime would be North Carolina State's run in '83, for sure.
Mm-hmm. And that's what Jimmy, what is it, Valvano?
Valvano, yeah.
Yeah, it's.
We call it Valvano. Yeah. I'm half Sicilian, so we can throw out the Sicilian stuff.
Yeah, but it was a coach. He had passed away.
Yeah,
he got cancer.
Yeah,
and one of the best speeches. It's like, they literally walked him up to the stage.
Yeah,
for him to give this speech, and he knows he's dying. Everyone.
For sure.
And what I love, if you remember the timer, on the teleprompter, it tells him like, "Hey, wrap it up." And he's laughing like, "Wrap it up!" Like I care. He's like, "Where am I gonna go?"
Yeah. I got tumors all over my body. I care about some guy flashing 10 seconds.
Some guy's telling me wrap it up.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
We'll have to watch it sometime.
Yeah, it really is. Even if you're not a basketball fan or a sports fan in general, it's the things he touches about, I think touches, it goes beyond sports. It goes across, humanity. I mean, because you talk about, you have a limited time on this earth, and how you should use it, and what's the 3 things he says you should do every day? Think, laugh, and cry.
Yeah.
You should have your emotions used, move to tears. You should think about stuff. You should, make the most out of every day. And though, I would say for me, I try to make the most out of every day that I can. And some days are more full than others, but I feel like I don't waste many days. And and a lot of that is just, kind of thinking about the things that Valvano said on that speech.
Yeah. It's very real. Who at what point in your life, Chuck, were you like, I'm going to coach?
It didn't come very quickly for me, honestly. I never thought that I would see myself coaching. I never thought I'd see myself teaching. Didn't think I had the interest in it. I had a couple opportunities when I was in my early 20s and out of school to coach younger kids, junior high, and I just didn't feel like it was for me. And I had a good friend that talked me into it at 6th and 7th grade one year, and it's all right, But it was great for me in a lot of ways because, true story, and most of what I would tell you would be true. The first game I ever coached was a 6th grade boys basketball game, and my coaching idol is Dean Smith, and I was also like Bob Knight. So you got this first game, and you're going to be Dean Smith, you're going to be Bob Knight type thing. And so I go to put this young man into the game. Game's up and going, and I went to put him in. And I said, "Okay, you've got number 25." Or whatever it was. And I said, "Hey, wherever 25 goes, you don't lose 25. You're on 25 like a glove." So there's a dead ball. The young man goes in the game. I turn around to do something, and the officials are not starting the game. And I can't figure out why. And we're looking around all of a sudden, because I have 4 guys on the floor. And, this is before the Norman Dale days. My team was on the floor. This is before, Hoosiers. And so I see all of a sudden, one of the officials start to smile. Well, they had taken number 25 out of the game. At the same time, my guy had went into the game. So in front of the bench, there's this kid doing exactly what his coach had told him to do. 25 sitting on the bench. He's guarding right in front of him, and that was my introduction to coaching. And for a guy that had a little bit of an ego like myself at that time, that was a pretty good way to kind of knock it down and say, okay, this is where we're at, And so I coached junior high basketball for a few years, and then had an opportunity to move up and up and up. And I kind of I really started to dig it for a lot of reasons, not necessarily only the basketball. It was a relationship with the players, and which is probably the biggest thing that I miss right now is from stepping away, is the relationship that you get with the players. And then when I was in the classroom with the students.
That's got to be so fun. Watching not only the players develop, but also watching them become young men. You got a guy early coming into high school, and you can, say, oh, this kid has all the potential in the world. And then you got some that maybe doesn't have much potential, but then through hard work and effort just blows up and gets, rewarded from that.
Yeah.
You see all the walks.
You do.
All walks of life.
You do. And then you see them go beyond that and become successful adults, which is even cooler, but we've had, as you mentioned, we've had the kids that have come in that you're like, this kid's going to be pretty good. And he ended up being pretty good. But we've had some of those kids that, it's so difficult to tell whenever you're like in 4th, 5th, or 6th grade, you're like, that kid's got something. It's not there, but he's got something. And we've had some kids that have, that grew into, great role players for us, and sometimes beyond that. Because one thing I've always that I felt like we never had what I would call our top teams without, you have to have the kids that can put the ball on the floor, obviously, but you got to put the ball in the hole. But you got to have the kids that do the dirty work, and you have to have that they accept, hey, my job is this. And we've had, and I'm sure Coach Soto's probably going through that right now, that you've got to have them all. And it's fun to watch those kids develop into, the the type of role they play for the team, and they play it as hard as they can and as well as they can, and yeah, it puts a smile on your face, you know. And then you watch those kids go out as adults, and you know what, they take their work ethic and their passion, they go out and become productive adults.
That's true. That's true. Most of those people that come from sports, sports teach them stuff like to be competitive, to be like teamwork is huge in life. Not only, if you're not doing sports at all, whatever job you're doing, that's extremely important. Knowing how to work with other teammates, knowing how to help people without wanting anything in exchange. But I was gonna ask you, what do you think is the biggest challenges you had as a coach?
As a coach, wow, that's a tough one. When you coach, and I had the privilege to be in charge of the program for between Roseville and Monmouth, 28 years, and you are looking after the well-being of 45 kids. Mm-hmm. You know, it's not 5, it's not 2, it's not 11. When someone walks into our program, you know, and I know I can say this for Coach Sotos now, you care about them and you love the kids, and you want to make it the best experience you can make for it, but you also want them to get something out of it. So I always felt like we had some very high expectations and very high standards. And for me, and I feel like my biggest challenge was living up to that myself, because I'm not if I'm going to talk the talk, I'm going to walk the walk. And I feel like keeping and trying to hold those standards was probably the toughest thing that we had to I don't want to say fight, but we had to be aware of the whole time. Whether it was in the classroom, on the floor. A few years before I retired, the Illinois Basketball Coaches Association started an academic all-state teams where they recognized teams that I believe, and I may be off on this, but their team had at least a 3-point average during the season. And I know the last several years, since its inception, the last several years I coached, we made IBC all academic, all state. To me, hey, that's as much for me to be proud of than winning a regional or winning a sectional and beyond, because you're doing it and you're doing it the right way. We can go back and look at our Elite 8 team, our Sweet 16 teams. The correlation of kids that were good athletes but also good in the classroom was nearly 100%. And if you're going to have high standards, it can't be, in my opinion, one area only. It's got to be the umbrella. And that's tough to do.
Yep.
I think one of the hardest things for coaching, if I were to coach, would be you want to save them all. You want them all to win. You want everyone to hit their max, capability.
Yes.
And you want that for them, not even just for you to get these wins. But you want each player, and I think that would be the hardest part for me, is seeing because some kids just aren't going to care.
Right.
They might even be out there because mom and dad said they're playing basketball, or you're just good enough that you're wasting talent if you don't go. There's a lot of that, but they're not really in it, and that's okay. But I think for a coach, I would I don't want to say care too much, but that would be a big struggle for me.
Right. I agree. I understand what you're saying, and for me, Lauren, one of the toughest things for me personally was we had, and I could sit here and I'm not, but I could name off a half a dozen names off the top of my head, where we had young men that just busted their tails and busted their tails and busted their tails, and it, for whatever reason, didn't work out for them. To where they were never able to crack the starting lineup that's what they wanted, or crack just for whatever reason. Maybe we had kids that were better than them, because unfortunately, I could work the hardest that I could work at singing, all right? And I'm not going to be a good singer. And I won't sing I won't put you guys through that. Maybe later this wears in or whatever. But there's some, it's the same way in anything. Sometimes you can bust it and you want it. It just doesn't work out. And that was one of the toughest things for me, that I would talk to Mark. I was blessed to have a lot of great assistant coaches over the years. And I would say, what am I missing? Am I missing something here? And they're like, no, it's, or they might bring in something else that I wasn't seeing. But, most of the time, if I had looked to see what am I missing, I'd already dug around pretty good to see where we could find a place or whatever, and it just wasn't working out. And that was very tough for me because, you've heard it, and I never heard it really very often because I honestly had relatively great experiences for the most part. But everyone was, well, the coach doesn't like him. No, coaches love you. They're not there to pin. The coaches want to see everybody do as well as they can be, and do and get something positive out of it. Sometimes it just doesn't work out. And you know what? For as bad as the kid felt or the parents felt, the coaches feel just as bad or worse because they want to see it. They see you working, they see you, and just sometimes it doesn't work out.
Yep.
Right.
What's your opinion about parents that gets too involved on the coaches' decisions? Because every parent wants their kids to have playtime.
Well, as I said, and I'll be honest with you, 95% of my contact with parents as a coach was positive.
Yeah,
it really was. And I got out obviously 3 years ago, and I understand, obviously it's getting more and more a changed world. How do I want to put this? I think there's a line. I'm a parent. I'm a grandparent. My kids have played athletics. They've done other things. I think there's a line between being an advocate for your child and being an obstacle for your child.
Yep.
And I think being an advocate is fine, even though that's one of the things that we always kind of said to our guys, hey, go be an advocate with your teacher, go talk to her, be an advocate for yourself. But I think there's a line. And so if a parent is an advocate, I get that. But I think there is a time where they become an obstacle. And outsider looking in now, I think there's more obstacles.
Yeah.
And I think there's a time where you just have to, you have to let your child grow and you have to let your child fail.
Yep.
And, we learn the most when we're on the ground, getting off the ground. I did it as a young man. I've done it as a coach. We've all done it. And so I feel like that's a disservice. But like I said, I get the advocate part, but I also feel like you need to teach your kids how to be an advocate.
It's tough being a parent. We've talked with parenting on here as other episodes, but it's tough, because you want to be able to fight and save your kid from embarrassment or stupidity or even them messing up themselves. But you're right. The reality is you almost got to step back, let them make the mistake.
Yep.
And then maybe help with the resolution.
Exactly. That's the thing, because that's just as big of an important lesson to learn in life, let alone athletics, is getting yourself back off the ground when you fail.
Yep.
And that's why one of the things we talked about with our players was the importance of kind of playing this through the season kind of on an even keel. Enjoy the wins, but not get too high on the highs. You're going to have the bumps in the road. Don't get too low on the lows, And we had about a 5-year period where we only averaged losing about 5 games a year. It didn't matter, but whether it was that point of time or any other time, but we always meet with our kids on Saturday. We always had after we played on a Friday night. I always felt like it was important, especially if you lost, to get the kids back in the gym, get them around each other. But the first thing we do, we always huddle or circled around the jump ball circle before every practice. And if we had lost, and of course there's windows in the old, I stopped short of calling it the shoebox, but in our gym, and I would say, hey, look at those windows. You guys see the sun? It came out today, right? It came out. It's a new day, new week. And so, you kind of, and I would have probably been the most disappointed person, if not one of the most in the gym. And there's a lot of times that I drove around after a tough loss. I'd drive around until I saw the sun. I want to make sure the sun was coming up, you know? So I'd drive around and I'd listen to music and come around. Okay, it came up, you know, but I think that's an important lesson. You know, we all have had to learn it somewhere along the road, you know, and, you know, I certainly cannot stand here and tell you I've never failed in my life. And, but I also learned how to get myself, you know, hey, all right, let's get back up. Let's get back in the fight. And I think it's important to spread to the people that whether it's a coach, whether you're working, you're head of people in a business, whatever, is show people how to bounce back.
For sure. Yeah, failing is extremely important in life. I think that's the way you become a stronger person in all aspects.
Exactly.
You know, I'm also involved in sports. I've worked at Sandburg College in soccer for 5 years now at Knox College. But I mean, I usually work with international students, recruit international students. And I mean, I've brought over 200 international students to Galesburg. And every time I deal with parents, most of the parents are good. Most of the parents that are sending their kids from other countries to come here, they understand that their kids needs to just get around, learn things like, you know, you're going to fail, you got to get up again and keep going. But a lot of the parents with kids like 19, 18-year-old, the parents are like, okay, who's going to take them to practice? Who's going to cook for them? Who's going to clean their bedroom? I'm like, no, don't worry about those things. They'll get here, they will figure it out. Don't worry about those things, you know? Like parents overprotect their kids. That is not a good thing. No. Let them fail, you know? That's how they're going to get around. That's how they're going to learn, you know? The more the parents want to do everything for their kids at that age, the worse their mind's going to be, the kids.
Well, they just have never forced to figure out anything on their own.
Yes.
If you're there to do it for them every time, right. What are you going to wait till they're 24 and finally off on their own? And then they're just having their first challenge, you know?
Yeah.
I would say my parents did a really good job of letting me fall, you know? I always say the trust fall, you know, a lot of parents, as soon as the kid starts to fall back, they got them.
Yeah.
Let them hit the ground. Right. And then help them get back up.
Exactly.
You know, like that's really, because otherwise you never feel that like, that, you know, what might be rock bottom. Or, you know, like, dang, I totally ruined this. I messed this up, you know, and now I got to figure it out.
That's a great point. I mean, what's the saying? Rock bottom will teach you things that no other thing in life will. I mean, you know, and, you know, I mean, there's different levels of rock bottom, but I mean, you know, whether you're, you know, 18, 19 years old, and if you're going to screw up, what a better time in your life to screw up when you're 18 years old.
You have nothing to lose.
Yeah, like, what a better time, you know? I mean, if I screw up now and I throw it down now, you know, but, you know, and trust me, I screwed up a lot when I was a kid. But that's my other time. But the other side of that is that you, as a coach, you are supportive of those kids. And I was very guilty in several cases of giving maybe kids more chances than they deserve, because you need somebody to help show them that, hey, I know where you're at now, but we can get you out of here. You know, and I feel like, so from a coaching standpoint, I think that's a very important part of it as well, is to help be that person. Yeah, let them hit bottom, but then show them the way out. Or help to try to help them find a way out of it. And sometimes for kids, it didn't happen while they were in high school still, you know, but it happened after high school, and you look and you're like, okay, he made it, you know, and you know, you get a little smile on your face because they did figure it out.
For sure.
You know, one of the best opportunities for coaches in general is you are almost like a branch of a parent. You hear so many people, whether in their Hall of Fame speeches, you know, professional athletes, almost every one of them has this coach, you know, that showed mentor. Me. They, you know, not only made me a player, made me a man, or made me a woman, you know, made me an adult, made me disciplined. Like, I like to think, man, for the most part, if anyone is really on you, pushing you, they're doing it because they care.
Yeah.
You know, because if they didn't care, they wouldn't even waste the time talking to you, kid.
That's
if I didn't care, I would literally not even waste my time or energy with you. Here I am holding you accountable. I'm pushing you, man. You're not going to like it. But I promise you, when we get to, you know, that spot, you're gonna like it. You're gonna be so glad that we did it. You know, my parents told me when I was younger, they said, "You'll thank us for this later," because they always we had a ton of chores, accountability at home. Yeah. You know, I didn't even play sports. I had a job. I had to work. I mean, we did stuff around the house, and they always would say, "You're going to thank us for it later." And I remember being like, "I hate you for it now."
Right.
You know, in my head, I wouldn't say that to them.
Right. No. I
but you know,
that.
You're like, "Oh man, I don't know when later's coming, but I hate you for it." This, you know, all my friends are out here running around. Why am I having to do all this stuff? And I hated it. And I remember I'd moved to Arizona and went out to school there. And I was a couple years older than the other students because I had had some delays along the way. But I remember I was like 22, 23 and calling my parents and saying, like, my light bulb went off where I'm like, this is what, you know, I'm kind of looking around at my peers. Nobody really seems to care. They don't know how to figure anything out, you know, and I'm like, this is what they were doing to me this whole time.
Right.
While I hated it.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
But man, I wouldn't be anywhere near the person that I am now without my parents pushing me and holding me accountable.
Right.
And, you know, giving me direction and discipline.
Yeah. And the key word is accountability. I mean, that's a key word there. And I know that, you know, one thing that I told our team, and I think I said a few minutes ago, I had a lot of great assistant coaches over the years. And I would tell our guys, I'm not your friend, I'm your coach. And we got, you know, Coach Simpson, Coach Dennison, Coach, you know, whatever, you know, they're your guys, you know, and I, you know, I was probably tough to play for. But I would tell them, you're here. I'm going to try to take you here. All right? Because we're going to try to go here. And sometimes we got there. Sometimes we didn't. But, you know, to me, one of my goals as a coach and as a teacher, I would say this when I was a civics teacher, was to make them better players, better men from the time they walked in to the time they walked out. And if I didn't try to take them to the highest level that I could get them, then I failed them. And I really, and you know, I mean, nobody was ever harder on me than me for the last however many years of my life. I mean, I self-evaluated as a coach all the time. I had Jimmy Simpson, who was a good dear friend of mine, who was our top assistant for a lot of years. You know, I'd run stuff by him for all the time. Am I wrong here? What am I doing? You know, and he would put his 2 cents worth in. You know, yeah, we're on the right track, coach. Or he'd go, I don't know. You know, but you know, you're always evaluating yourself because you know, I think to be a good leader, you have to evaluate. You can't, not to the point where you're wishy-washy, but you have to evaluate. Okay, is this? Am I going crazy here? You know, or am we going the right direction? But I felt like that was part of our success, was the fact that we tried to get guys to play. You know, we obviously played a very fast up and down the floor type basketball, which I loved, and our kids loved it. But to do it, you know, you're either in or you're out. You know, you can't do that halfway, because you got to, you know, if you're going to get them down the floor, you got to take care of the ball. You got to be good at transition defense. You know, you have to make good decisions. And so in practice, there were nights I was a madman, you know, and you know, and I'm sure the kids were like, you know, kind of what you were saying with your parents there a little bit ago, right. You know, and that was fine. I had no problem with that, you know, because I knew when they needed to blow off, they had Jimmy or they had Doug or any of the other guys who were around that could kind of, you know, sit and talk. And I trusted them. They trusted me. And when you have good people around you that you trust, it's part of the success. You know, it's, you know, I never saw myself as this great coach that's going to have this word, you know, this is the word and this is how you do it. You know, there's a process to it. Yeah. And it wasn't always fun. And, but I also was, you know, I'm not very smart, but I was smart enough to put people around me that could be the guys that, because I understand guys every once in a while need a vent. Okay, they got these guys, and I think that was a big help for sure. But then when they get it, and you hear about it either when you see it in high school or down the road, I've received text messages, I've received emails, conversation. Coach, I didn't get it, but I get it. And that's cool. I'm like, okay, and I wasn't going to go out when I was a senior, but okay, that's cool. I get it. We had you thinking, we had you thinking. And, like I say, it's not always, your growth isn't always comfortable. And in fact, I would think more times than not, growth is not comfortable.
It's not comfortable at all.
No.
Yeah.
You don't want to be comfortable.
Yeah.
No.
I feel like the minute you, especially at a younger age, the minute you're comfortable, that becomes stagnant. You like this.
Exactly.
And because it's comfortable right now, I know it's not going to be comfortable next year or when I'm 50 or when I'm 60, So
Exactly.
don't get comfy.
Exactly.
That's dangerous.
Yeah, one thing I've heard is you're either growing or you're going down. There's no comfort level that you're just gonna stay there your whole life. You're either going down or up. So you gotta definitely be careful with that.
I mean, even in my life now as a farmer, I'm back. I farm with my two older brothers now. I mean, we've got this farm this year, farm season over. I'm talking to guys about what'd you do? What'd you plant? How'd you do? I'm trying to learn. I mean, we had. We had terrific crops, but what did you do? I'm thinking, okay, is there something I can do different? There's something I can make it better with.
Yeah.
And it's just always trying to do a little bit better.
For sure.
That's the way we were all brought up. Or I mean, I don't know. That's the way we were brought up anyway. Is that you want to be the best you can be.
Yep.
Totally. One thing I was going to bring up, and I love this about basketball, and maybe you'd share if it fits for soccer or other sports. But one thing I've always loved about basketball, I played with you, a bunch of the other older guys, anywhere from the age of early 20s to even I think some in late 50s, early 60s, playing basketball together.
Right.
And what I love about it is you can tell so much about somebody's character when they're on the court. How they handle themselves during a game. I love it. 'Cause, I mean, there's some guys that I've played with that I maybe just knew briefly in passing or thought I had a perception of them. You get on the court and you see how they handle themselves. And you're like, man, that's a good dude. Yeah. That's a really good guy. I like how he handles it. Or even the other way. Right. You can see it go the other way too. And you're like, where'd that monster come from? Right. But I just love that in friendly competition, we're not playing for any trophies or anything. Right. We're not keeping stats, but we're still, trying to, compete.
Oh, you're still trying to win.
Yeah.
No doubt.
But
you're still trying to win.
I really, really love it though about sports or at least basketball in general that it's an opportunity to show really much more than just your talent. It shows a lot about your character.
Exactly. I mean, there's a lot of people that off the court, I'd throw myself in this. Off the floor, I don't like being in charge of much. Hey, what are we doing? All right, well, I'm a go with the flow kind of guy. If I'm around 4 or 5 people or my family, whatever, and we're going, okay, we're gonna go here and here. Okay, I'm in. Yeah, I'm in. And you just tell me what we're doing. When I get on the floor, it's a little different. I'm obviously much more assertive. So yeah, it does. It tells a lot about you as a person, especially when you compete for sure. I love the guys that have fire in their eyes when they compete, whether they're 12 or 52 or 62. I love those guys because there's to me they're still getting out of it what it's there for. It's challenging you. I've had opportunity to play in the it's called the Windy City Senior League in Chicago, and there's dudes there 55, and I play with guys that were 74. And when you play, you're getting after it. You're getting after it. Yep. But probably the biggest difference is like anything in life, the older you get, you kind of get something. Okay, I get it now. 20, 30 years ago, you might have had a little thing going in the game, and then when you walked off, it wasn't over. Now it's over. Somebody say, hey, I saw you roll an ankle. You okay? Or something like that, But it's, you see those guys. I was talking with one of my teammates, I got to know because a few of them were inner city Chicago dudes. And so I sit around after a game and talk to them. And I just kind of get to know them. And I saw this guy, Wayman. And he's about 6'5", get up down the floor well and stuff. I said, how old are you? How old are you, Wayman? 74. You never would have guessed it. But there's this guy, 74 years old, just knows how to play, loves playing. And I'm like, hey, you're my hero. I'm going to be playing when I'm 74, man, And I don't know.
That's great.
When you have, the way I look at it for a couple of ways, I still compete. I play tennis, I play basketball. I'm going to keep doing that as long as I can do it. As long as I'm blessed to have enough health to do those types of things, I'm going to keep doing it. Do I worry about getting hurt? No. Do I worry about dropping dead on a court? No. I'm like, hey, I'm going to live my life. And, whenever, I don't think the guy necessarily wants me. I think he's kind of way, okay, I don't know if we want this guy or not. Let's kind of keep postponing it. We got some stuff on him back here when he was like 19th or 12th. I don't know. Let's keep him around a little bit longer to see what happens. So I don't think he's going to call me anytime sooner. But I always feel I've never coached afraid, and I've, we walked on the floor a lot with a lot of teams that were better than us, but you would have never known it the way we walked on the floor. We played Quincy High School. We had a 5 or 6 year run with Quincy High School. We would go to Chicago every year and we'd play one of the inner city schools and things like that. We played the Galesburg Shootout a few years ago, played a couple of the Chicago teams. And, on paper, they were probably more talented than us. When we walked on the floor, we didn't care. And that's, I think, the way you got to live. I mean, I'm not reckless, but you can't be, you have to be confident who you are, and you have to live. I coached fearless, and I live fearless.
I've always said I'm just dumb enough to believe I'm going to win.
Absolutely.
It doesn't even matter what we're
Absolutely.
doing. It'd be my first time ever playing soccer, and he's going to destroy me. But I'm going to tell you, I'm just dumb enough to believe I'm going to win this one game.
Absolutely.
Well, but that's the good way to think.
Yeah.
It's the right way to think.
Yeah. So I don't know. But is soccer like that? Do you feel like competing on the field like that? You can tell, how this person probably is.
I mean, you can tell, not everything, but you can tell several things, like the kids that are egocentric. Let's say there's 2 in front of the goal. Oh, you didn't pass the ball to me. I was the one. I could have scored this goal.
Yeah.
That's not good.
Instead of like,
Right.
hey, nice goal.
Yeah. But the same way you have the guys that work with their teammates, that help them. But you can see the ones that control their emotions well, the ones that don't control their emotions well, in certain situations of the game. So, you can definitely tell about their profile, the way they are.
Chuck, how do you feel about flopping in soccer?
Flopping? I'm not a fan of flopping in any sport.
Any sport. I like to give him grief. So,
Well, it happens a lot in soccer.
I know. It's part of the game.
Yeah, it's
they
part
say
of the
it's
game.
part of the game.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It needs to look bad enough so the referee gives the yellow card or the red card. So.
I know.
Well, we would play against some guys who would flop on their shot, right? And they'd get to the line. And I would admit now that the first time we were in a huddle after that happened, whether it be a timeout or in a quarter, before we'd break, I'd say, I won't use names or anything, but I'd say, hey, don't forget, hey, number 12 needs to be fouled. All right, number 12 needs to be fouled once. And the guys would take care of it, And I will admit that if we did it, I mean, hey, okay, you want to flop? Okay,
Right.
you go get one.
Yeah, we'll give you
I have
something.
no problem with
about.
that. That's no problem with teaching kids that. It's just kids sticking up for each other.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Chuck, what advice? Oh, first of all, before I get into that, you got the opportunity to coach your son or not?
I did.
I thought so.
Yeah.
I thought Eric did. So what was that like, being able? I mean, I assume he kind of grew up in the gym with you anyways.
He did.
But then when you're actually coaching him.
It was, for me, it was fun. He played for us as a sophomore, and the best thing that happened for me during his sophomore year when we were playing down at the WIU tournament in Macomb. And it was morning of the third day, and they have a hospitality room. And I stopped in there to get something. We whether I was scouting or whatever, but it was pretty early in the morning. And there was a guy by the name of Mel Casper. And it's probably a name you guys probably familiar with. Mel was a great coach. He coached at Avon. He coached at Abingdon. He coached at Lewistown. He's a Hall of Fame coach. He's a wonderful guy. Came from the South Side of Chicago. We've talked a lot about it. We're both White Sox fans. And I didn't know him. I knew him well enough to have a conversation with him. As he sat down with me, and he said, it looks to me like you're struggling on whether your son should be on the floor or not. And honestly, because he's a sophomore, he wasn't real big, but I felt we were better with him. I said, yeah, you know how it goes, Mel. He said, I'm telling you right now, you're better with him on the floor. That's all I needed to hear. Because that was an outside thing, because I felt I was pretty objective, But you get a guy that has nothing in the hunt. There's nothing for that. There's no bearing on what he said to me was, he just said out of the goodness of his heart. And it's all I needed.
Yeah.
And so it was fun. It was the one thing that we had to do, that I had to do, was be aware that we never talked about anything basketball wise at home, because I was on Eric harder than any player I've ever coached. There's not even a close second.
I was going to ask that.
Yeah, I mean, there's not even a close second. And I was on players a lot. But I mean, you could say, there's him, and then there's probably the next dude right down there. Right. His junior year, we lived in Roseville, and he was never late for curfew. And the night before a game, it was a Friday night, and he was a few minutes late for his curfew, but he texted me, said, Dad, I'm on my way home. I'm going to be a few minutes late. So, okay, cool. You'll be home. So I didn't address, I just thanked him for letting me know. The next night, in the first 3 minutes of the game, he had a couple of turnovers and a couple of fouls. We addressed Saturday night on the bench is basically what happened. And it got pretty vocal. And Jimmy Simpson said to me, let the kid play. Just let the kid play. And, again, when you got people that you trust, that are telling you that, it was a great moment for me, because I'm like, okay, I've got to separate that, and
I'd have to be. My kid would end up quitting if I was his coach. Yeah. Just how I know I would be.
Right. Well, I mean, because the spotlight's on him, more so than me, but it's on him.
Absolutely.
He's only playing because he's the coach. He was only a third-team All-Stater because I was his coach. He only played college basketball because I was his coach. I'm sure, it's
because your dad, right? No credit given to him.
No. But if one teammate went to the baseline and picked up and turned it over, it was Eric's fault. If another teammate got backdoor for a layup, it was his fault. You should know
it is, right?
And I was on it. But we did, like I said, we never talked about it at home. And I think he had a great experience. I feel like he had a great experience from what our conversations have been as adults. And we went to super sectional senior year, and lost a tough one. So we had great teams, but I would have changed. That's one thing. People say, "Oh, I wouldn't have changed the thing." There's some things I would have changed. That's not one of them. I wouldn't have changed the way that I handled Eric as a coach, because I feel like it made him better. He was a terrific point guard for us, and probably, if not the best on-ball defender we ever had, one of the top 2 or 3.
Well, I'll tell you, he's an even better man.
Thank you.
Than he is player.
Thank you.
So,
and
I
you know
really
what?
mean that. As a father, I will tell you, man.
I appreciate
he's
that.
such a good dude.
Thank you.
And you did a great job with him.
Thank you.
He did a good job too.
And honestly, with what you're saying, if somebody would come talk to me about, hey, this guy played for you. Okay, his name's such and such. He's a really good man. I'd be happier hearing that about any one of our players.
That's the goal, right?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, absolutely.
I would say the main goal is that one. When
Yeah,
you see the
you're
kid
part of
grow
you're
up
a part of the you're a part of the process.
Yep.
Mom and dad are, the teachers are. I mean, we had when I was teaching there. I mean, we had some terrific teachers that wanted the same things. Yeah, you want them to be good dudes.
Well, that's got to be the end goal, because here's the reality. What is it? You probably know it's probably less than 1.5% of all these basketball players in our nation, in junior high and high school, that ever even get a sniff of the NBA.
Oh,
Or,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, but I would be like, hey, guys, listen. There's literally a 99.99% chance that none of you go on and have basketball be your life, okay?
Right.
So let's use this as a tool, let's work as a team, let's have some fun, and let's build character and build men, because you're not going to go make a living. And go prove me wrong if you can, because I want you to.
Right, exactly.
But the reality is you're not gonna. I mean, I'm not trying to be negative, but like, don't. So many kids, I mean, nieces and nephews, they're like, I'm going to play in the NBA. And I'm like, no, you're not. In my head. But like, I'm not going to burst your bubble. But the reality is don't go putting all your cards on that, because the odds are it's not going to work.
But one thing that we did was we made it about our program. We made it about the program. The program we had, basically, how I want to put it, goals of our program, how we acted, what we wanted to see out of you in the classroom, how you presented yourself and things like that. We made it about our program. And I say our, I would never say my or I, because it was always we and us. Mm-hmm. And so instead of making it about an individual that, like you say, may have the aspiration to play in the NBA, but probably not, we made it about our own goals of being successful and trying to play. Our ultimate goal is to play for a state title. We didn't quite get there. Hopefully someday they do again. They did it in an 82-ish. So hopefully we do it again. But we made it about that. And we let kids sink into it. And for a lot of years, they did it. Mm-hmm. And you could, and it was cool, that kids cared about. When we traveled, we wore collar, shirt, and ties, and things like that. And just the way we presented ourselves. And if we lost, the last thing I would tell the guys would say, hey, straighten up your tie, put your head up, walk out of here like you own this place. Mm-hmm. We're the Titans, man. We made it about that.
That's cool.
And I feel like for the most part that was successful. Once in a while in a practice, if I felt I needed to, I would say, hey, get over yourself. It ain't about you.
Right.
Get over yourself. It's about all of us. Mm-hmm.
That's true.
And sometimes you need to hear that,
That's great.
So I feel like that's the way we tried to kind of go skate around what you're talking about there. I mean, we had a couple of kids come to me during my coaching at the time say, hey, Coach, I'm thinking about not playing football. Why? Well, I'm going to play some AAU basketball. Are you kidding me? Go play football. Go play football. I mean, you're going to get one shot at running out there on Friday nights. Get out there. We'll have open gyms. You can shoot it and stuff like that while you're doing it. But yeah, are you kidding me? Yeah, go have some fun. Mm-hmm. I think you understand. We've had one since I've been here, or was here. We had one professional athlete, and that was JP Machado, who went to Monmouth High School as a 94 graduate and walked out of Illinois as an offensive lineman, and then played with the Jets for 5 years. Yeah. So we've had one. Will we have another one? Maybe.
Probably. It's just, like I said, we can't have every kid hanging their hat.
Yeah. I mean, that's why you can't be telling kids, well, you're going to play on Sunday afternoon. Really? What, over at Lake Storm?
Right.
They got a flag football thing going on Sunday. What are you going to do? What are you doing? You can't be telling kids that.
Right.
And on the other hand, the people that are playing NFL or in that level, they all heard that when they were starting.
Oh, for sure.
A lot of them were told you'll never have a chance.
Yeah.
A lot of them were told too, and it's like, you kidding me? I'll show you.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what I think pushes most. Mm-hmm. The real warrior, if you're a real competitive warrior, the guy telling you who you can't do it is going to push you so much further than someone saying, pumping your head up and saying,
"Oh, for sure,
great."
That's
for sure."
If you're a real warrior, you don't even need your head pumped up.
For sure.
But
and then at some point, the reality kicks in too, in that you have physical limitations. And I think the person that does you the most good is the person that can say, I don't see you doing this. I see you doing this. And then you decide how you react to that, because I had players that, I wanted to maybe play some Division I basketball. I'm like, dude, you're not a Division I player. I'll be honest with you. Can you be on a team? Yeah. You a minute guy? No. And so at some point you got to have both. I think you got to have the person that, I'm not trying to discourage you, but here's the reality. You're 6 foot, whatever it is. And then they can decide on, what motivation that was and how, beyond that.
True.
But I don't know. I think it's to me personally, I don't think it's very advantageous to tell kids things that they just aren't capable of doing.
Yeah.
And I mean, I had this conversation with a college coach several years ago, and he said to me, because he asked me about some kids, and he said, Coach, I love talking to you because I'll talk to some coaches and they'll say, oh yeah, he can play. And I get it, he can't play,
Right.
And I'll be honest with guys. I'll just say, I don't know if he can play there,
Right.
And I'd love for them to have an opportunity, but I mean, I had relatively few Division I coaches call me when I was at Monmouth or Monmouth Roseville, but I had a few about a kid. I wanted to be as honest as I could be, because even though I may not think that kid might not, maybe I'm going to have a kid down the road and I call and say, hey, I got a kid who can play. Well, you told me the other kid could play.
Right.
Well, I don't know.
You don't want to burn the opportunities.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's got to be a level of honesty in there.
Yeah.
As well.
Yep.
And so I don't know, maybe in some case I was too honest, but
No.
I'd rather give the honest assessment, and just say, hey, I think you could probably do this. I don't think you can do that. And sometimes, as motivated as you might be to prove me or whoever wrong, there's still physical limitations.
Yeah.
I could have never been a professional basketball player. As much as I wanted to play, I had fire in the soul, and there's no way. There was physical limitations, and so I think that. And that's, a couple of years ago, we played. Of course, I'm an old man now, but we were playing in the senior state basketball championships in the Chicago area, West Dundee. And the night before, a friend and I. We were staying in a hotel. We went down to this place and had dinner. And his dad, they're celebrating their JFL championship. And this dad comes over and we're talking to him. And he's telling me he was pretty proud. And why wouldn't he be proud? You won the JFL that day and whatever. And he's like, you guys keep an eye. He's special. I'm like, really? Okay, cool. How old is he? He's 10. All right, cool. And I'm like, maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. They apparently won the Dundee flag football that day, so I don't know. Maybe I haven't really looked to see the course of how many Dundee football players have tracked their way to the NFL. Maybe it's large. I don't know. But my friend said, and he had 3 kids play. All 3 of them played small college athletics. And he said, better watch whether you think your kid's special or not, because you go down there, a lot of people that are pretty good.
Yeah.
Right.
And now he said it perfect.
Yeah.
But because we all want our kids to be the best.
Yeah.
I did. You do. But you get outside your little bubble. There's a lot of people that can, whether it's play or sing or whatever. I mean, there's a lot of people out there.
Yeah,
For sure.
There's always someone better.
Yeah.
That's the truth too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's
For sure.
always.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Chuck, man, thank you, dude. I appreciate you coming
welcome.
in. Hopefully, you've had fun.
I have.
You don't have to appreciate a damn thing here.
I always have fun.
Yeah, but we appreciate you coming and jumping on here with us, talking about your coaching experiences and just kind of life. I always, me and him have talked multiple times, just how sports and life, so much of it goes in together.
It does.
And
For sure.
So, thanks for coming in.
Well, I've enjoyed it. It's been a fun experience for me. And
We appreciate
Good.
that, man.
Well, keep enjoying retired
I
life
will.
and get out there and travel some more.
I will do so.
All right. We got Coach Chuck Grant here. You're tuned into the Talk About It podcast. I'm Lauren Fulmer.
I'm Victor Dantas.
You
I thought
cleaning
you were going to
fuzzies?
say.
I was Victor Dantas. Okay, guys. Hey, thank you. Have a good rest of your day. Thank you for watching this episode of the Talk About It podcast.
I'm Victor Dantas.
I'm Lauren Fulmer.
And we would encourage you guys to subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to hit the bell. It's going to be right below the video. So you
Hit
guys,
the bell.
so you know when the next episode is up. All
We
right?
appreciate all the support.
Thank you.